Hi all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Ollie. I'm an avid stitcher and an enthusiastic collector of vintage sewing machines. If you've been following my channel just recently, you'll realise that I've been working on a sew-along on how to sew a plushie. We're actually on number 4 in that series. Now if we just recap for a minute over what we've covered so far. In the first video we looked at the equipment that you need to sew a plushie. In the second video we looked at the cutting out of the fabric. In the third video we looked at stitching the head together and getting the ears in the right place, and in today's video, number 4, we'll be looking at stitching the wings together and hopefully sewing the body together as well. Now would be an excellent time to subscribe to my channel if you'd be interested in sewing along with the Baste plushie. Click the little bell down below so that YouTube will let you know next time I upload a video, and you'll find out straight away when the next Baste video is flying. Still to come on this channel, I've still got a few sewing machines to add to the differences between sewing machines from when Grandma was built in 1912 up through to the early 2000s. In case you're wondering who Grandma is, she's actually my Singer Treadle 27 from 1912. I've also got another sew-along coming along in a paperboy hat, which has been on a back burner for a couple of weeks now, and I've also got an exciting new series coming up in the new year as well. More on that in later videos, but for right now let's get straight into today's. I'm going to put a link in the description box below to the previous videos in this series. The pattern that we're working from is this Baste plushie from choly.com. I'll put a link to that in the description box below as well. From the last video we got this far. We got as far as popping the head together, getting the ears on. We've left a little opening at the bottom so that we can get some stuffing in the head and actually attach the head to the body. More on that later. What we'll be doing today is actually working on the wings. The first thing that we need to do is make sure that we've got the right wing pieces going together to make one wing. And to do that, what we need to do is make sure that we can get two pieces with right sides together. Now, all my pieces at the moment are facing with the wrong side upwards. So what I'm going to do is just turn them over. Now, these two here are facing in the same direction, so that's not a pair. What I need is one that faces in the opposite direction. So if I turn one of these wrong sides over, you'll see if we use the ones in the middle here, you've got one wing pointing that way and one wing pointing that way. So those are an ideal pair, and those are the two that we're going to be using. Now what we're going to be doing next is, with the right side facing upwards and the right side on this one, we're going to flip it over so that they're right sides together and just pop them together like that. I don't know if you can see the chalk marking, but that indicates that that's the wrong side and that's the wrong side as well. Okay, so now what we need to do is mark the seam allowance, which on this particular pattern is 1/4 of an inch all the way through. So you mark that in your preferred way. You can either use a pencil or a fabric marker or anything like that really. We're going to use pins or clips just to hold the pieces together, and we're going to go to the sewing machine and just sew them. Now when we sew, we're not going to do across the bottom. We're only going to go across the top of the wing, across the bottom of the wing, and then just leave that bit open. So let's go and get that sewn together. When you've sewn all the way around apart from this end here, what you next need to do is just clip all the curvy bits so that it makes it easier for you to turn this the right way out. When you've got it turned the right way out, you should find you've got something that looks like that. Now, getting these points to turn out properly might be a little bit tricky, so if you just use the end of a pencil or the end of a pen or something that hasn't got a sharp edge, because obviously you don't want to poke a hole straight through it, you can just tease those out with something like a pencil or a pen, and then we'll get on to the next stage. For the next step, what we're going to need to do is refer back to the pattern piece for the wing, and you'll notice that there's little dotted lines. One goes all the way across the top, and you've got more dotted lines going down towards the points of the wing. What those refer to are top stitches that we're going to do on the right side of the back pieces now, just to give it a little bit more of a wing-like structure. Now it's up to you how you transfer the markings from the pattern piece to your actual fabric. You can either mark it on there with chalk or a fabric pencil, or anything that you can wash out. Obviously you don't want to use a permanent marker because your markings will be there forever if you do that. Measure the distance on the pattern piece and use the ruler to transfer the markings to the fabric. Now it doesn't really matter too much if you don't get it in exactly the same place that the designer's got it on the pattern piece. The only thing that really matters is whatever you do to this wing, you do to that wing, because obviously you want these two to look the same. So let's get on with the marking. Once you've got your lines on, I've got a line going across here and down to the different spiky bits on the wings. Now it's a case of going to the sewing machine and just doing some top stitching. Now when I say top stitching, what I mean is you literally put this under the sewing machine foot, right sides up, and you stitch across the top. Try and keep the top stitching as neat as you can, because obviously it's going to be visible, and that's the whole point, because it's the top stitching that will give it the structure and the veins of a wing. Now when you're top stitching, you always use a straight stitch. The size of the straight stitch can be as small as you want it to be. We're just going to start off. I've got my sewing machine set up on the little chalk line that I've drawn, so off we go. And don't forget to back tack. And then it's just a case of following the line, and as the line tapers, you taper with it. And don't forget to back tack at the end. And you do the same for the veins on the wings. Start at the pointy bits of the wings and just work your way in towards this line of stitching that you've done on the outside of the wing. And I'll meet you back here when I've done that on both sides, both wings, sorry. When you're done, you should have something that looks like that. And now it's just a simple matter of rubbing off your chalk markings so that you can't see them. And now we get on to putting these on the body. So now we've got the two wings, and the next thing that we have to do is similar to what we did with the ears in the last video. There's a link in the description box to part 3. We need to baste across the open edge of the wing. That's just so that it stays still for the next stage. Now you remember from the last video I said to baste on a sewing machine. All you have to do is you do a straight stitch and you put the machine on the longest straight stitch that it's got. And then you make sure that if your seam allowance is 1/4 inch, which it is throughout this pattern, that you do your basting stitches inside that seam allowance, so obviously they don't get in the way and they don't show either. So that's what we're going to do next. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to focus on the body now. Now if we refer back to the body's pattern piece, here at the sides you'll see it says wing placement, and what we need to do is transfer that to the fabric so that we know roughly where to put the wings. And just make sure you got it on both sides. And then what we're going to do, similar to how we did the ears in the last episode, we baste the wings to the body piece. Now we've got this right side up, and what we want to happen is we want the wing to be shaped like that when we turn the body the right way out. So to do that you need to place the wing on the body so that it looks like that, and we're going to do the same with the wing on the other side. so that we baste it so it's facing inwards, but when it's the right way out it'll look like that. Okay, that'll come clear in the next stage, but what I'm going to do first of all is with the wing like that, I'm just going to baste across there. When you've got both wings basted on, you should have something that looks a bit like that. Now, keeping the right side of the body piece facing upwards at the moment, the next thing we have to do, similar to what we did with the ears, is we have to fold the wings inside the body section. Oops. So that we can get the back part of the body and make a little bat wing sandwich. Now make sure that this piece goes onto the sandwich right side down, so you've got the wrong side facing you, and then it's just a case of making sure that those wings stay out of the way. You just pin or clip this body part to the one on the bottom. Make sure you don't catch the wings as you're sewing around, because obviously your bat's not going to be able to fly properly if he can't spread his wings, so be careful that those stay well out of the way. Just get some clips and start clipping. As you're clipping all the way around, make sure you just gently push those wings out of the way and just hold them with a clip. You can use pins for this as well. I'd recommend using one or the other though, don't try and wing it, because it's just too easy for those wings to slip into the way and get caught as you're stitching around. Oops. Okay, and you just put as many as you feel comfortable with. Oh, that was broken. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to sew down this side, around the feet and back up this side here, leaving that open. Before we actually start sewing the body together, it might be a good idea at this point if you reset your machine to your standard settings and not the long basting setting that we've just been using. I always forget that bit. Daisy. Okay, bobbin sorted out. Let's start again. Easy under the foot. Seam allowance is 1/4 inch. Oh, my thread's gone. There they are. Oh, that wants to go under there. Right. Try again. And let's sew. Now don't forget, just keep moving that little bit of wing out of the way as you're going forward. And now I've lost my foot pedal. It's going to be one of those days today, isn't it? We will carry on regardless. Oh. There's me telling you to take it slowly with fleece, and I've got it on the top speed. Tut tut. Right, onwards and upwards. Just keep pushing that wing well out of the way. Okay, when you've sewn all the way around, remember to clip your curves so that it turns the right way out easy, and then it's just a case of pulling it to the right side. There you go. The next thing that we want to do is stitch the head to the body. Now what we're going to do is we're going to keep the body right side facing upwards, and we're going to put the head with the face facing the body, and all we're going to do, we're not going to stitch all of it together. We literally just want to sew the face side of the head to the front side of the body, so you're just looking at those 2 layers of fleece. When you've done that, you should have something that looks like that. So you've got the head attached to the body, but the back is still open so that we can stuff it, and that is what we're going to be doing next. We're going to be stuffing him. Now it's up to you how much stuffing you put in the bat. It depends on how soft you want him, but ideally what you want to be doing is start stuffing with the legs first, because you'll find it's easier to get the stuffing into that part when there isn't any stuffing in the head, because you'll have more room. So start from the bottom, put as much stuffing in as you like. When you get to the top of the body, start stuffing the head, and then when we've done that, we'll come back and I'll show you how to sew up the hole. When you've got your stuffing in your bat, you should have something that looks a bit like this. And now what we need to do, obviously, is close up the hole that we used to stuff it with. And to do that, what you're going to need is a standard size needle, some thread that's the same colour as your bat. Now you can either tie a knot in the end of the thread, or you can do it the way I do, which is basically where you're going to start stitching. You just catch a little bit of the inside of the fabric, push your needle through until, I don't know if you can see that because the stuffing's getting in the way now, until you've got just a little bit of your thread left hanging out there. You put the needle back in through the same spot and push it through and get even more stuffing in the way. Then you get a little loop and you put your needle through the loop and just pull, and that makes a knot on the fabric for you. And just tidy the stuffing out of the way for a second. Right, there you go. Now the stitch that we're going to use to sew the hole up is one that we've used before. We used it on the seat pad in the how to make a seat pad video, which I'll put a link in the description box for you. And basically it's kind of a laddery whip stitch type of thing. In what you're going to be doing is you put your needle in to that slight fold on one side like that and just pull, and then you bring your needle over to the other side, and inside that little fold that automatically turns over because you've got a seam there already and it just naturally wants to follow the seam, pull it through and then just pull. What we're going to do is we're going to keep going, grabbing a little bit of the fabric from the fold on that side, like so, and then doing the same on this side. You just grab a little bit of the fabric and you pull it through, and what you're doing is you're basically making a little ladder across there. As you get closer to the body part, what we're going to do is we're going to start bringing that body part into the stitching. Just get a little bit closer, and now what we're going to do is change how we're holding the bat for a moment to make life easy. In through the top part, oops, not quite so big as that, and then in through the top of the body part. So it's just in through the fold on the head section, oh, there's a bit of a seam there, and out through the fold on the body section, and just pull, and you just keep doing that all the way across, and you'll see that it will just pull those two bits together. When you get to the other end, all you need to do to cast off is you just put your needle inside the stitches that you've just done so that you're in the seam. Whoops. Pull it through till you get a loop, put your needle through the loop and just pull, and then just do that one more time over the top so it just secures that knot for you. Like that. And then just chop your threads. And there is your completed bat. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you're happy with your finished bat. Overall, I'm quite happy with the pattern from the cholynight.com website. It's a nice easy pattern to follow, and the bat actually sews up really quickly. The only thing that I think I'd change if I ever make the bat again is I probably wouldn't use fleece, well, not this thickness of fleece anyway, because it does make some of the seams just that little bit thick to deal with, and it particularly makes the wings difficult to fold up when you're stitching the body. I'd probably use something like a brushed cotton or something just to give it the softness, but obviously you'd get it a little bit easier to work with. Still to come on the channel, we've got the series on the sewing machines and how they've changed since Grandma was born in 1912 all the way through to the early 2000s. I've got the new series coming up in the new year, so if either of those interest you, subscribe to my channel and ring that little bell so that YouTube will let you know when I've uploaded another video. In the meantime, thank you ever so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you've been joining along with the sew along and which little cutie you decided to make. You can also share the little bats or whatever you've been making with me over on Instagram with the hashtag #SewAlongWithOlly. I'll put that in the description box for you. Again, thank you ever so much for watching. Whatever you're sewing with, wherever you're sewing, enjoy your creativity and have fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.